here we go. Good evening, everybody who gets to join live, and anybody who goes ahead and watches the recording. This is Jerry Rasco, and my second Periscope broadcast. If you saw yesterday or watched the recording, I started out by doing a sketch of this Marvel character here called the Taskmaster. And it's not a character that I think I've really drawn before, so I thought it would be kind of fun to do. I love the skull visage and the hood, and it's just a super cool design. So where I got to yesterday after about an hour was I had everything laid out, all of the basic contours were done, and I was doing most of the shading on the head was done, and I went ahead and finished the rest of it today. I cleaned up the pencils by erasing those, and now we're ready to put on some color. So I've got all my my pens, my markers out for the colors I want to use, and I'm going to go walk you through some of that and my process on how I colored, the different techniques and the different tools that I use. So the first thing I always do when I'm going to go ahead and color a piece is I always start with the lightest colors and then work to the darker colors. And it's just because if you make a mistake and you color a little more than you want to with a lighter color, you can cover it with a dark color, and you can't do that the other way. So I always start light to dark and go from there. So with the Taskmaster, he's got this white skull and a white hood and cape, and then there's some white trim on the costume as well. So we're going to be starting with that. So any of you who watches who aren't comic book artists, you may be looking at me and going, "Well, Jerry, what are you doing? It's white. It's already white." It is, but because everything is just the white of the paper, it becomes flat. You can't tell, other than what I've done with the line work, you can't tell that this is closer than this, or that the light is coming from the top and shining down. So what I want to do is use a combination of gray tones to illustrate the fact that while this is white, it does still have variations in the color for it. So the markers that I'm going to be using for the majority of this, it's going to be a combination of two different types of markers, but most of them are going to be these. These are the Copic sketch markers, and somebody had asked about those yesterday, and I'd mentioned them. These are called the sketch markers. They come in they have two tips on them. They have the brush tip, and they have the chisel tip. So what this is, I've got, these are gray, so these are the first gray that I'm going to be, and I've got C1 and C3. So these are considered to be cool grays. And what that means is that they lean towards the cooler scale of the color spectrum, so that they almost read like a bluish type color. And then you'll see later I'm going to use warm grays on the skull part because it is an organic piece, and it'll read almost more like a skin tone, and you'll be able to see the difference. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with C1, which is the lighter cool gray, and I'm going to just go ahead and just start putting in the cool gray coloring where the shadows are going to be. And I want to, let me see this other cool gray. This one's a little newer. And so using the lines and sort of sculpting out the shape of what this would be like if it was a 3D object, where would the shadows lie versus obviously it's a 2D picture. So that's what we're going to head ahead and do and start working on putting in these initial shadows. So again, if you didn't watch yesterday or you hadn't seen the first show, the light source I figured is to the top and the right, and it's kind of coming down across. So anything on this side, like this area at the top of the cape here, that's going to be in the light, whereas anything else is going to be in the shadows. So we're going to go ahead and start doing that and cutting in these shadows. And just like yesterday, I think there was only, there was only one question that came across, and somebody had asked if if I'd ever used these Copic markers before, and I was able to kind of explain what Copic markers are, how they work, that sort of thing. If while I'm working tonight, if you have any questions about anything, or you just want to comment, throw something out there, be my guest, I will from time to time look back at the phone that I have here where I'm using to record, and I'll go ahead and check those. So if you send across a message with either a question or a comment or just a hey, what's up, whatever it could be, if I don't see it right away, just keep sending that message through, and I will catch it eventually, and be happy to answer your questions. So again, thanks everybody who's joining tonight, either in person or anybody who watches this replay over the next day or so. I really appreciate it. It's just a lot of fun for me. I've always really enjoyed drawing in front of people. It's something that, a lot of people would think tends to be more of a solitary type of hobby. You're usually sitting like I am right now at a desk kind of by yourself. You don't think of it as a real social event, but for me, it really is. I've always enjoyed it. When I was a kid, I used to do the school district would do a big art show every year, and I would talk my teachers into letting me have a table at the art show where I could draw. And what it turns out years later, doing the exact same thing basically in what we call Artist Alley at comic book conventions, I would just draw sketches for the elementary school kids who would come in, and it might be at the time this would be the early 90s. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was really, really popular. So I found myself drawing a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the kids and stuff, and I've always enjoyed it. I've always felt very comfortable drawing in front of people, and now I get to use the technology of mobility, cell phones, and Periscope to go ahead and do it now, but from my home. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty exciting. So gone ahead and added the lightest shadows that I want to do, and I can always go back and add more, right? It's better to add more shadow than add too much, because you can't, again, like we said, you can't remove the color once you've put it on there. So I want to be kind of a little bit smart about where I put my shading and how much, because I can, like I said, I can always add to it later. So we're going to go in and just kind of add some shadows where this white wouldn't really necessarily be able to get to any light source. Okay. So now this comes the beauty of Copic markers. So anybody who hasn't seen Copic markers before. So now I'm going to go up to the next step. So that was C1, and now this is C3. And it's kind of the next step up. Technically there is a C2, but I feel like the difference between C1 and C2 is so little that it's actually really hard to see. So now what I want to do is add the C3 on top of the C1, where I want an even darker shadow. So I can bring that in there, underneath the fold here, and underneath down here. Along this bottom edge here would be much darker, where it folds over to the inside here. And the cool thing about Copics is, if you just take the C3 marker, the Cool Gray 3, by itself on plain white, it looks different than if you overlap it with either another color or another gray tone like this. It actually sort of works, kind of blends, the markers blend together. So what you could do is actually sort of create your own gray tone or colors, if you mix colors as well, and create something that didn't exist in the first place, which is pretty cool. So even though there's already some gray 1, there's gray 1 on, I'm still going over it because the mixture of the two is going to create that shadow that I really want. So, hope everybody's having a great weekend. Been a little hectic around here. My wife and I have a little girl, and she's feeling a little under the weather today. So we were kind of keeping an eye on her and getting her comfortable and all that kind of stuff. And it's rough when the little one isn't feeling good, but you know, it happens to everybody, right? So, hey, Aaron, thanks for making it. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy it. Just talking about some of the stuff I'm going to be doing here with how I'm going to be coloring and my techniques and stuff like that. So glad to see you on the broadcast, and hope I'm not interrupting anything too fun on a Saturday night. So, but thanks for coming in. Okay. Now you can see I am still leaving a lot of the white on the top areas where I think there would be light. So it's not becoming totally gray. It's still that sort of white is acting as the de facto highlight color. So this is white, and then I've got the shadows, and that creates the depth that I'm looking for with this. Now, what I can do is come back in areas that I want to blend a little more with the C1 again. C1. And by going over with the lighter color, it'll actually kind of smooth out some of the lines and the sort of marker strokes that you see with the C3. So it'll sort of blend the C1 and the C3 a little more. So you can come back in and create a more seamless transition between the C1 and the C3. So, kind of get that going. Okay, and I'm kind of liking where that is so far. And again, I can always come back with more of the C1, with the C3. Or I could continue to even go darker with, I've got C5 to, I think, to C7 as far as the cool gray colors go. So I could continue to go even more with it. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start using the warm grays on the skull piece, because that's kind of the next lightest color that I'm going to be using. So here I've actually got, for this, 3 versions of the warm gray, 1, 3, and 5. And you're going to see when I put those on, the difference when you compare the warm gray against the cool gray, and how it kind of translates between almost working in like the red and brown tones versus the blue tones, and how your eye picks that up. So again, starting with the lightest and building from light to dark, it's the warm gray 1. And using the same idea that knowing where my light source is, which is from here coming down, I know where the shadows would be. And of course, my line work with the hatching that I did helps as well. So, again, thanks everybody who's on the broadcast, who's watching tonight. Appreciate it. Do not be shy to let me know, like I said, if you have any questions or any comments or anything. And if I don't see it right away, because they sort of flash up on the screen and they kind of wait a few seconds and then they disappear, just keep sending it over and over until I get a chance to see it, because I'm taking every so often, what I'm doing is just leaning back in my chair and looking at the screen for the comments. So don't be shy about either asking stuff, saying stuff, or saying it more than once if I don't hear it or don't see it the first time. Okay. So just like with the white of the cloak and the hood, the cowl, I'm still leaving a lot of the white area of the paper to be the highlight So wherever the light would be striking this mask, because it's supposed to look like a skull, it will be white. And so that's what I'm doing, is leaving that. And I've left mostly the teeth because I really want those teeth to pop. To me, it's kind of the scariest part. I may come in, I think, and maybe add some shading along the edges. But for right now, I'm kind of liking the real bright, shiny teeth. It's kind of a creepy, I think gives it kind of a creepy vibe. So with that, now I'm going up to the the warm gray 3. And again, just building those shades so that it's transitioning into the flat black areas that I inked yesterday. So here we go. And you can see now, really, so they're both still considered gray, but I mean, you can really see the difference between what's a warm gray and what we mean by warm gray in here versus the cool gray here of the cloak, and how that really plays a big difference. I've seen people, a number of really talented artists, and what they'll do is they'll do whole pictures, whole images that are just grayscale. There's no actual color in it whatsoever, but your eye reads it like it's in color. It's amazing. The grays, the warm gray can read like a red or a brown color. It can work as flesh tones, and the cool gray can work obviously as a blue. It's really amazing once you get a handle on them, what they can do, and the blending and stuff like that. And, you know, when you find people who are really, really good at it, it's really impressive. So because the skull is inside this really hooded cowl, right? It's real dark. The idea is it's real dark in there. I'm going to go one step darker with the warm 5 as the next step, just to get that final blend into the dark black shadows inside there. And it really starts to create some of the shape. Gives it sort of that 3-dimensional shape. It's going to help to push, you know, the jaw, the parts of the cheek here, the top around the eyes. It's going to start to push that back into the shadows, and then it's going to pop the lighter components out back into the light and closer to the viewer, closer to the camera. So there's that. And there we go. I'm liking the skull and the cowl and stuff. So from there, the next components of the Taskmaster's costume, he has some parts that are kind of an orange color here on the. So this goes down into the gloves, or the arms are orange. This part inside of this shape is orange. But you have these gold. These are sometimes they're shown as white. Thanks. Glad you like it so far. These are sometimes shown as white, silver, gold. It just depends on the artist. So tonight I'm going to try to do them as kind of a goldy yellow color. So now I'm going to use some different kind of markers. Now you can use Copics. Copics come in other colors as well. You'll see when I get to the blue. I'm going to be using Copics for the blue, but I'm going to be using these Prismacolor markers for kind of the yellow colors. I think they're a little more vibrant sometimes. They're certainly a lot less expensive. And when I'm looking for just a flat, plain old yellow or red or green or whatever it is, Prismacolor is good. They don't blend the way that the Copic markers do, but you know what? In this particular case, this is supposed to be sort of a big metallic disc. I don't need it to blend. You know, in the skull area where the colors are, again, supposed to be kind of more organic looking, I definitely want it to blend. But here, I'm looking again at more of a just straight up yellow, you know, bright, shiny looking color. So this is a canary yellow, which is sort of my go-to base yellow. And then, just like with the cloak, with the skull, I'm going to leave some of the areas white, and that functions as the highlight. You wouldn't necessarily do that, maybe if this was something that's green, I could bring in a real light green color, and color it. The thing is, with gold or yellow, there is no lighter yellow per se. It's really hard to get a light yellow color that translates. So instead, I'm going with the white as the highlight. And then coming in with, it's called yellow ochre, which is sort of almost, it's kind of a brownish yellow. And this is going to function as my shadow, where it lines up with the shaded areas like this. Actually, and another one. There we go. So it's a little fresher. That is one of the downsides, is the Copic markers are actually refillable. And it's great because it will save you a lot of money to refill them. The warm grays there, I refill those because I use those a lot for things. The Prismacolors you can't refill. So once it starts to go bad, you basically just use it until it's dead and then move on from there. So likewise, I've got those. I'm also going to do the same thing with the buckle across the strap. This is supposed to be like it becomes like a leather strap. I'm going to give them a yellow buckle and go from there. So kind of the same idea, just bringing in the brighter yellow color where I think the light would be hitting. Again, the light source coming from here. So I'm really looking at the light source coming through this way. So, hope everybody's enjoying so far. Hope your Saturday's going well. Hope you got good plans for the rest of the weekend. Something exciting, hopefully. It's I'm down in Austin area, Austin, Texas, a little bit south, and it is now the brutally hot portion of the year. So we were pretty lucky throughout most of the year, but now it's into the 100+ time of the year. So it's kind of like reverse reverse hibernation, right? When it gets to be 100+ here in Texas, we all kind of hole up in our air conditioning and do whatever it takes to stay cool, whereas everybody else in the country is still enjoying their summer. So thanks everybody who's joining. Appreciate it. It looks like a couple more people have joined. Thank you so much for coming. And if you do enjoy it, if you're having a good time and liking what you see so far, just help me out, please. Share, like it. You can add the hearts by tapping the screen, and that's cool. But more importantly, just share the link. Share it via Twitter. Let people know they can see the replay of this video for the next 24 hours. And then I've also figured out how to set it up so that it will save the video here to my phone, and I'm going to hope to try to upload it to YouTube at some point in the future. So we'll see how that goes. So keep your fingers crossed for me. So I've got the gold components down that I wanted, and now I'm going to go in and do those orange parts that I talked about. So the first thing I'm going to do is use another one of these. This is called Spanish orange. It's a little more of a yellow orange. There's not a lot that is going to be kind of that's getting a lot of the highlights here in the orange parts. A lot of them are far away from the light source or covered by other things. So I'm just kind of using it to sort of pop a little bit. Again, just to kind of add an element that it's not just a flat color. Whenever you do something that's just one solid color, like if I just colored this orange part just one flat color of orange, it really flattens it out. It doesn't give it any kind of depth. And then at that point, all the things that I've tried to accomplish by adding depth and making it look 3D through the shading and the line work is out the window. So what good is that, right? So now I'm coming in with just a traditional orange, and now I've got the highlight. You know, so if, like I was saying, if I had colored all of this with just this really bright orange, it would have kind of flattened it out a little bit. So we got this. So, and for anybody who joined late, thank you again very much. I appreciate it. If you have any questions about anything, or you want to add any comments or anything, I am trying to check the screen. I've got the phone set up, and that's what I'm using to record. And I can see the text. You know, if you send a message, it comes across the screen. Every couple minutes, I'm kind of stretching back in my chair and looking at the screen and trying to catch any messages that come by. So if you do want to say anything, be my guest. I appreciate it. And then if I don't answer you right away, just go ahead and just keep typing it, add it in a few times until it comes across and I'm able to catch it and say something, either answer your question or let you know how much I appreciate the feedback. It is one of the harder things. For, I don't know, you know, anybody here who's watching or is going to watch this, it's an artist, getting, you know, real feedback, real critique style feedback, or just any kind of feedback other than, oh, that's cool, oh, that's great, can be kind of tough. And don't get me wrong, positive stuff is great. People like it, is wonderful. But I always want to know, well, what did you like about it? You know, is it the line work, but the colors aren't that great? Is it the whole thing? Is it the character that you really like? It's just because you don't get that a lot. I think what happens is, for the most part, people will look at it and go, oh, well, I couldn't do that. And because they feel like they couldn't do it, they don't know what to say. So they just go, oh, that's great, it's awesome, or, you know, whatever the case may be. All right. So rambling aside, there's the orange components of the costume. Now the main body of the costume throughout here is a blue, like a kind of a real rich blue color. I'm going to save that for later. The next piece I'm going to do is this leather strap that goes across his chest, and I've got a couple different browns for that. Again, coming back to the Copics, this is a light walnut that I'm going to be using on the Copics for this. And pretty much most of it is going to be this light color because it's pretty much, for the most part, in the light source. You know, light's coming from here as his chest comes out. Quite a bit of it is going to be in the light source. So I'm just using the large tip, or what it's also called the chisel tip, to kind of just block out the bigger areas of the color here, where this will go. And then I can come back with the brush tip, which is much finer, and kind of get into here without hopefully making too much of a mess and getting it where I don't want it. So the other thing that's kind of cool about Copics as well is, I don't know if you can see this, if the resolution is good enough, you can layer a Copic on itself. And what that means is, if I take this one single color and I go over it 2-3 times, or just in an area maybe several times, it will actually get darker. It will add and layer that color on top of itself. So I can create a little bit of shading with just the same color. I don't have to get a different color that is just a slight, barely, different variation of this one. I can just go ahead and layer those over and over. Now, the downside to this is, once you start coloring with Copics, and if I was going to start doing this belt, if I colored halfway and stopped and said, I'm going to come back tomorrow, as I come back and I start layering the color tomorrow, where it touches, there's going to be a line. because it's going to have more ink has been added over the top, right, like this, and so this edge right here is going to be a lot darker. So if you don't want that kind of a look, once you start going with the Copics, you've got to finish that part before you know, otherwise you're going to have some kind of look like seams or streaks in it, something like that. So this is a, what color is this? Just simple dark brown. But it's a good solid brown. It works for a lot of different things. It has good coverage, and it's not too far off the general tone of this, so that you can kind of tell that they're in the same family of brown color, and especially when we go over the top like that, they work together as a light color and a shadow. So here we go. Adding the shadow, because this side is the underside of the belt. It's away from the light source. And so here we go. Now I'm going to bring this in so that it's a little bit to there. And there we go. And so the strap across the top is done. And now it is time for the blue. Again, so I've got here a couple of different Copics. One is Sky and one is Lapis Lazuli. So, but B24 and B18. Now, the interesting thing is that the numbers sort of tell you on like a scale how, quote unquote, air quotes, how blue the color is. So the higher the number, I believe, the more like saturated the blue is. Yet interestingly though, the sky blue is actually a lighter tone than the B18. So you definitely want to have something like I have over here on the side where I'll test my colors and see, like, this is actually the one that I did to say, if I use this color for the one blue, is it going to work? You know, what's the light shade that's going to work with it? And I'll kind of put them together and see which ones I like. So this one, this B18, is in fact actually the darker of the two colors. So I'm going to use the sky color. Just make sure. Yep. So I'm going to use the sky color as the highlight area. And because, again, the light source is here, things that are down here, there's not going to be as much of it where the light's going to hit. That's going to mostly be hitting his back and top of this line here. And it's just going to be the few things that would be over the top. His chest, maybe a little bit in kind of the rib area and the shoulder, maybe the arm here. So I'm just going to do a few small highlight areas where I think the light might hit. And then from there, I'm going to come in with my darker blue. And do the rest. Now, I find, for me personally, blues are pretty tricky to get the right sort of blending and color. And I don't know what it is. I think because blue can go in so many different directions. Like, you can have something that's really like a kind of a true blue or royal blue type of color, which is what I would consider this color. But you can also have one that's a little more to the, say, purple tone, right? It means it has a little bit of red in it. Or if it has almost like a grayish tone, then it's not as vibrant, and that doesn't really go with the light blue that I've put down. You can use, I don't know, it just seems there's just a ton of variety in blue, that it can be really hard to find, you know, kind of a light, medium, and dark that go together pretty consistently, at least for me. I find it much easier with green the green tones seem to work really well. You know, you can go with, even if you have like a yellow green and a more olive green and something in the middle, they still work together as light green, dark green, you know, medium green. But for whatever reason, blue is fussy. So I have a hard, you know, I'm always looking to find those just those perfect blues. So, get in on the blue here. So once I'm done the blue, there's one last thing on the actual character itself that I'll be doing, which is the eyes. And, you know, some people will start with the eyes. Certainly when I'm drawing, I tend to start with the eyes. But it doesn't really matter. For whatever reason, I seem to finish with the eyes. So I don't know, maybe I start coloring them, and maybe it's just because they're so small. It's just a little dot, so it's a very easy thing to sort of finish with. But for whatever reason, it seems like I find when I'm working on a picture, on an image, I tend to finish with the eyes. I don't know why. So, and then from there, once I finish with the eyes, I'm going to do a little something for the background, just, you know, some color to help it kind of pop. And now what I want to do here, kind of like what I did with the cool grays, is I'm going to come back in with the sky, the lighter blue, and I'm going to go back over these areas that I did, and that's going to help soften the edges between the dark and the light blue. Not a lot, because they are still pretty different in terms of the tone of the color, but it's definitely going to help that the separation between the two. So we're gonna. So this is one that needs to be refilled pretty soon here, which is always frustrating. Of course, it never happens. You never need a different color, and oh, that's the one that needs to be refilled. It's always, you have an area this big and to fill in, and that's the one that needs to be refilled typically. So the Taskmaster is a normal guy under the skull mask, and I was kind of doing some reference earlier to see, like, you know, make sure I had the right colors for the costume and stuff, and I saw he had, you know, people gave him blue eyes, green eyes, brown eyes, because it's just a regular guy. But I thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool if he had, and here, again, I'm just using the same color blue. This is the same dark blue that I was just using here to just sort of add a little more shading just by layering itself in a few areas. That's all. While I'm talking. So anyway, back to the eyes. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if he had red eyes? I figured, you know, he's a pretty creepy guy. He's obviously using this imagery to scare people. You know, how hard would it be for a guy like that to just have some red contacts, you know? I thought that would be pretty cool. So I'm going to go with red, and I'm going to go with kind of a dark red color, just to bring up the sort of creepy factor. And as well, from a distance, it'll probably kind of read like brown, is what I'm thinking. But let's give it a shot and see how it goes. So this is a dark red Copic. And I'm going to come in here like this. And then the other thing is, I'm going to use this dark red color for my background as well. And so that'll help kind of tie it together. So I'm kind of digging that. And you know what? Before I do, I'd said I thought I might go back and touch the teeth a little bit. And I think I will. So what I'm going to do is just with the tip of the white, or the warm gray one, just going to add a little bit of shading. See, the thing is, what I think is even creepier kind of about the Taskmaster is because it's not his face isn't a skull. The idea is that this jaw and the mouth doesn't necessarily move and come apart when he talks. It's just a mask. And so he's always shown, whether he's talking or doing whatever, with the skull mask kind of closed. And I don't know, makes it even weirder, creepier, I think. So anyway, so I didn't want to necessarily show like the division between the teeth, but I think it just needed a little bit there. I'm pretty happy with that. And then what I'm going to do is just, I'm not going to color the entire background area. I'm going to add kind of a piece to it here behind him, and then bring that color down in here. So what I want to do is I want to have, just so I get some clean lines, I'm going to have my ruler here. And I'm going to kind of go like this. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not, this is just for me. So I'll bring it down here like that. And across here like that. And then, let's see, kind of like here. I'm going here. I think this works for me. Kind of like this. I'll just connect that. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to bring this red all the way around the outline of the figure, like this. And this is doing a couple of things. One, it's just giving your eye one more thing to look at. If you have a character on a blank white page, it could still be good, but it's a little boring. Or unless you do an amazing job either with the inking or the coloring, it can be a little flat. And so by adding in another color element, something as simple as this, it just gives your eye one more thing to look at, which can be fun. So let's bring it over on this side over here. And then let's use the wider chiseled tip. Will give me a little quicker coverage here. Oh yeah, and the other thing, if you haven't used Copic markers before, actually the same with the Prismacolors, is they really don't smell. So there are some markers that you can get. Actually, I have some here. Just see what they're called. This is, I don't know, AD marker chart pack. I've had this thing forever. And these are the kind where, these are straight up alcohol-based markers. So when you crack those open and you're coloring something, make sure you've got a window open. I remember, in college having to do art projects with those, and you're working in a little dorm room or whatever, and start working for an hour or something and not realize it, and walk into some fresh air, and all of a sudden you realize what kind of fumes you've been sitting in for the last hour or so. Okay, I'm going to bring in this red color here. And you could, I could have used anything. I could have used a neutral color. I could have used a different gray tone, whatever it was. For me, one of the things I do like to do is if I'm going to do something like this with just a plain, not it won't be plain. I'm going to do a little more to it, you'll see. But if I'm going to bring in I'm not drawing an actual object or place for the background. I like to bring in a different color that is not part of the character. So, if I come in with a blue, it would have been blue here, it would have been too heavy on the blue. Or if I had done, again, an orange or something like that. By doing the red, it ties in with the eyes that I did, but that's it. And everything else is just that. So, let's see. The last thing I want to do, so this is a Signo Uniball white jelly pen. I've used a bunch of different things to try to add white lines to my artwork. I'll show you. I've tried liquid paper correction pens. They don't work. I've tried some white paints, white inks, different paint markers, different types of jelly roll pens. This is this is actually Jelly Roll brand white pen. This works. This isn't bad for small areas, but I find that this one is the bomb. And I ordered this from jetpens.com, and it was relatively inexpensive for 2 of them. And you can see they give you a really, the ink flows really well. It gives you a really clean and bright white line. The other ones there, this style, these are almost more like it's like a ballpoint. And I find sometimes if I have to go back over it again, the ink doesn't flow as well, and you're kind of digging in lines and that sort of stuff. So I really like these a lot. At times I will use, I don't know if I've got one here. Here we go. This is a good whiteout. This is the Presto correction pen, and it is whiteout. You shake it up and push it, and whiteout comes out. It works well. The whiteout can kind of yellow a little bit sometimes, depending on what you're using it on. And it's a little bit messy, so it's a little bit hard to control compared to the pen. But it's good for really big areas. It's good, if you want to lay down a lot of white in an area and you don't want to use, paint necessarily. So what I'm doing is just adding this white outline here, and it's just a way to kind of, again, doing every trick that you can think of to sort of create the element of 3 dimensions on 2-dimensional surface. So by adding the white, it pops the character out away from that background. It's just a simple element to add, but can make a huge difference. So let's do that. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because I don't want to obscure the line work that I did. So if there's a little gap between the black line and the red, that's okay. Again, this is just functioning more like a design element than anything else. And then that's it. So from there, I could add white to the red. I know some people do kind of some lines in the background, something like that if I wanted to. But I think for now I'm going to leave it like that. I'm pretty happy with it so far. So I'm going to grab a pen here. I'm going to sign this piece. And that's going to be it for this one. So there we go. Oops, let's grab a different pen. That one is not working so well. There we go. art signature. And there we go. And there's my Taskmaster. So I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, it started sort of from start to finish. From sketching to the inks to the final color, and a little bit from the presentation aspect of it. I hope to do more of these. I would love to be able to show my process when it comes to drawing actual sequential pages. I'd like to take everybody on a tour of my studio space, show you some of the original artwork that I have from some of the different artists that have given me artwork, show you some of the things that I have that really inspire me. So what we're going to do here, I'm just going to do one of these. There we go. And just kind of give you a quick sign off. So thanks everybody for checking out. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it, and I look forward to doing some more. So please, if you have the opportunity and you enjoyed what you saw, share it with your friends. Let people know. This will be up again, as I said, for the next 24 hours on Periscope, and then after that, I will try to upload it to YouTube. So it means basically I'm starting a YouTube channel, and hopefully people will check that out as well. So thank you. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and maybe we'll see you in the next couple days. Thanks.